Howdy, folks, and welcome to the show. My name's Cary Nightingale, and with me, as always, is my trusty sidekick, Kevin Nebrich. Kevo, how you doing?
Couldn't be better, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks for asking, and I hope you're excited, because today we're going to talk about how to get away with murder ballads. That's right, we're taking a tour through very grim territory to explore the darker side of human nature. The side that's not afraid to end someone's life and even less afraid to tell us about it in song. It's a genre that's been around for centuries, but we've got two relatively modern takes in this episode. Kev, why don't you tell us about the Killers that you found?
Jenny Was a Friend of Mine is the first track off of the Killers' debut album, Hot Fuss, released in 2004. This song tells a narrative from the perspective of a murder suspect in an interrogation room, which I thought was brilliant. As far as introductions go, I think they nailed it. This song is said to be the finale in a trilogy of songs detailing the murder of its namesake. The lyrics here are few in number, and with the exception of one actual rhyme, this piece is largely near rhymes and unrhymes. But that's not meant as a complaint, more so as a description. I loved that I could easily hear the bass when it's playing in higher octaves, but found myself yearning to hear the lower notes in the bass line a little more clearly. The vocals and drums are prominent, as is the guitar, which has some rhythmic presence, but for the most part the guitar is playing straight 16th notes, often becoming nothing more than background static. Finally, the synth sounds somewhat buried in the mix, until relieving the vocalist at 3 minutes and 4 seconds in. By itself, I feel that this song fails to tell a complete story, but as 1/3 of a trilogy, that makes sense. Killers frontman Brandon Flowers and bassist Mark Stormer are credited as having written this song and the preceding Midnight Show, which also appears on the album Hot Fuss, and tells the story of the murder itself if you're interested. The song Leave the Bourbon on the Shelf, written by Brandon Flowers, precedes these two songs in narrative, but was released on the album Sawdust in 2007. They wrote the whole story out of order. It's like listening to a Tarantino movie. I suppose you could listen to these songs in order if you felt so compelled. My tune score for Jenny Was a Friend of Mine by the Killers is 7.4 out of 10. But Cary, give her a listen and let me know if you disagree with anything I had to say there.
I'd be happy to. Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Thanks so much. Kev, I have to say I agree with your assessment overall of Jenny Was a Friend of Mine. It's a strong entry into the murder ballad genre. It's not at all what one would expect out of a murder ballad, but I certainly liked it. And I think you nailed your assessment.
Thanks. I think it was a fun song, but I'm very interested to hear the song that you have for us today.
Well, then I should probably get started. The murder ballad that I chose is Rosemary by Sierra Ferrell. You'll seldom hear a sweet line like, "Rosemary, she waits for you," turn so menacing so quickly as it does in this song. But the effect is dampened somewhat by turning the audience against Rosemary in the first 30 seconds by referring to her as a witch and then saying nothing redeeming about her in the whole song, which is kind of a shame in my opinion. A contrast could be drawn to Jolene. Consider all the complimentary things Dolly Parton says about Jolene. It's easy to understand the jealousy there because she's humanized. And nobody ever roots for Jolene over Dolly Parton. It'd be a fool's game. Rosemary's lack of characterization aside, it's clear that there's only one protagonist in this song, and it's the one with blood on her hands. The story is told more through imagery than detail. We know there was a metaphorical flood coming, but we don't know much about this love triangle or any of its participants. That's likely for the better in context of this song type. As a more traditional sounding murder ballad, the main accompaniment is the guitar, which shines by altering and adapting the rhythmic and harmonic textures seamlessly to the different sections of the narrative. There's a lot to love about the production of this track, too. The arrangement and mixing of multiple guitars and other instruments, especially what I hear to be a theremin or possibly a bowed saw, are excellent. The production does suffer from two chief problems, however. First, there is a very high-pitched tone that beeps through much of the song. It sounds like a note on the far right side of a church organ. And second, the song should have stopped before the bookended outro. There's a real emotional gut punch of underneath that flower bush, Rosemary waits for you, and it would be more effective if it weren't followed by the mirrored reprise of the intro verse. Frankly, that verse is just too weak to do the heavy lifting of lyrical bookending, and it gives a sense in this recording of seeming too dark by sounding too light. Even if the narrative of killing the other two-thirds of a love triangle is not broadly relatable, and I hope it's not, most of the other devices and references in Rosemary are relatable. Descriptions of nature, accusations of evil in the world, exchanges of wedding vows, and deep jealousy are all near universal to the human experience. Combined with the eerie, from another time vocals and some truly underappreciated backing instrumentation, the result is highly listenable, despite the flaws I've mentioned previously. The ballad is good, the murder makes it better, as they say. But Kev, I'd love for you to slap on your headphones, give it a spin, and let us know what you thought.
I can't wait based on that description. Give me a minute. Okay, I'm back.
So, Kev, what'd you think?
I think you were spot on for a lot of that. I disagree with you about the ending, but I will admit that I think it's a tough call there. I think that you're not wrong. I think that's a difficult choice to make between those two options of an ending.
Well, I think the one thing we could agree on is the way that this song ends, it has an effect, an emotional effect. And it's a decision to do that. I might have made a different decision if I were in the producer's chair, but I wasn't. That's more subjective to me. All of that aside, I don't want anyone to think that I didn't like this song. I had heard it before coming up with the idea of doing Murder Ballads for this episode or any episode. And I really enjoyed it. And I think Sierra Ferrell is going to be a star, whatever that means nowadays. And I should probably note that I rated Rosemary by Sierra Ferrell at a 7.5 out of 10 on the Tune Score scale.
Yeah, I agree. A couple strong songs there. Good work.
Well, all that said, I think it's time for a short break. This one's brought to you by your grandma. She's got a weak heart, but a strong right jab, so don't test her patience. We'll be right back. Howdy, folks, and welcome back. This is a great opportunity for us to talk at a little more length about murder ballads. First off, Kev, why did we choose to explore murder ballads?
Well, technically, this was your plan, so I'll let you take the lead on answering that one.
Well, really, I just thought it sounded fun.
Agreed. I had a good time. I think, I love a good story, and I'm a big fan of the anti-hero. They're far more interesting and relatable to me because they aren't untestable. They struggle. They can be heroic, but they're often weak in many ways. Their strength really comes from their ability to persist. They're flawed because they're human.
So, Kev, that insight about anti-heroes, Is that based on a preconceived notion of something you would get out of Murder Ballads, or based more on what you got out of these songs that we reviewed for this episode?
A little bit of both. So I did kind of expect that going in. And I think I got exactly what I was expecting, which was, either a monologue or, more accurately for the song I listened to, one half of a dialogue, justifying or denying the narrator's actions in an emotional and convincing manner. They're gambling their life on a convincing performance in the song we heard by the Killers, or they're explaining to a dead man that they had little other choice in Rosemary's case. Good storytelling, lots of fun.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I was expecting too. Really good storytelling, an element of cold-bloodedness. I'm always reminded of Shot a Man in Reno just to watch him die. And I think that's sort of the quintessential murder ballad element. But that's not exactly what we got here. I think there was a lot more passion in each of the narratives that we listened to. Sometimes our expectations are met exactly. Sometimes the songs fall short. Sometimes they surpass. And I would say in this case, it's probably a little bit of all three. But one thing that I think none of us can deny is that these songs and murder ballads in general can be real powerful. It's not the kind of thing that you want to listen to on repeat all day, every day. Moms complain about how playing video games make you violent. Good God, what's going to happen if we listen to murder ballads night and day? But Kev, what makes these songs so powerful?
Well, murder is just inherently compelling. It's difficult to imagine what would drive someone to either love or hate someone so much that they would be willing to risk their own life and freedom to make that other person dead. There's naturally exciting and even terrifying story complication involved in murder. Your character has a personal relationship with the deceased, so they're a person of interest. They left evidence behind, and there was a witness, so now they're a suspect. The stakes don't get much higher than that.
Spoken like a true murderer. I think you might be onto something. I think that taking a life never comes lightly. And I think most of us could probably never come to that conclusion, that decision. And if we do, I think it has to be driven by a raw or primal emotion. And those things, whether it's rage or jealousy or what have you, those emotions are generally very compelling in storytelling and therefore in songwriting. But I think there's sort of a counterexample to something that we've talked about in a lot of previous episodes about authenticity, sincerity, and bringing yourself into your lyrics. This is where we should probably cover our asses and say, hey guys, don't kill people.
Yeah, I think we should draw the line there.
Sound Appraiser really taking a stand here. But I think there's a lesson for aspiring songwriters. I think that if you practice this type of narrative, practice writing a murder ballad, and force yourself to explain why you feel what you feel, and then sort of tack on the conclusion of Rosemary waits for you, or shot a man in Reno just to watch him die, or I put 3 rounds into Kate McCannon. That exercise of exploring your feelings, your emotion, and how to write it into a tight narrative, I think that could be a really powerful way of quickly leveling up as a songwriter. Kev, what do you think? What other lessons should aspiring songwriters take from this?
Well, if you're a storyteller, I think as far as stories go, you could easily do worse than a murder ballad. Make it emotional, exciting, throw some familiar plot devices in there like a red herring or an unreliable narrator, and you've got yourself likely a song that people will enjoy while silently hoping it's fictional.
So there you have it. We strongly endorse not killing people, but we think that murder ballads are okay in our book. So as always, we invite and encourage you to give a listen to the tracks we reviewed today. They're on our Tune Scored Tracks playlist on our YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel and leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of our scores and critiques. If you're an up-and-coming songwriter, that's also a great place to recommend one of your songs for a tune score and some good old-fashioned, honest feedback. We'd love to hear from you. But we've had a lot of fun today, and we hope you did too. That's been Kevin Nebrich. I've been Cary Nightingale. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay sound.